All right, we're live. Good evening. This is Attorney Vincent Davis, and this is The Secret, How to Fight CPS and Win. And I am Attorney, as I said, Vince Davis, and I'm joined by my two hosts, co-hosts, Miss G, Miss Georgette Truan. Miss G, how are you this evening?
I am great.
Sounds good. And Mr. Darren Guai coming all the way to us from Maine
Yes,
with
sir.
with the bright light in the back. How are you
Yeah,
doing today?
I'm doing all right, Mr. D. I've had quite a day. Today was my daughter's birthday, so tough day. Tough day at the house for that.
Right.
And that was one of the questions I wanted to ask you about. As soon as I shut these lights off.
Hold
What
on a
is?
second.
Yeah.
Hold on a second. So, just to let our audience know, we had a guest scheduled tonight, someone from California. Apparently, she's having some technical difficulties. The producer hasn't been able to reach her in the last half hour or so. So, we're still going to go on with the show. We're going to have some questions from both of you to me. Maybe help tell some stories, maybe talk about something that is occurring regarding CPS in the news, okay? And so, we'll go with ladies first. Miss G, did you have any questions for me?
No, I should go with Darren first.
Okay, Darren, go ahead.
So after someone is TPR'd, what is, as far as standards go, for contacting the families or trying to be in touch? What are the rules and the standards by that? Like, if your kid was TPR'd, are you able to reach out to that foster family, especially if they were relatives, or is that frowned upon? Is there legalities involved? I mean, just overall, what is that? Is that standard set by the foster family themselves? Like, what are the rules for all of that?
Okay, so I'm going to tell you about what the rules are here in California.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and maybe they're similar to you in Maine, but in California, once you're TPR'd, that's it. You have no more rights.
Right.
You don't have the right to continue visitation. Now, in
Mm-hmm.
some circumstances, the social worker may advise the foster parent who's adopting to go ahead and let you visit or have minimal contact. Okay, sometimes those agreements are made. In California, interestingly enough, those agreements are not enforceable in a court of law. So, it depends. After the adoption is finalized and the case is closed and there's no more CPS worker, the foster parent can do whatever they want. They can allow you to have visitation. They cannot allow you to have visitation. It's just up to them.
Okay.
So does that make sense?
No, absolutely. I was just, those were just some things that had come up amongst some people that I've spoken with. So essentially, pretty much once the child's adopted, that means it's up to that family and that's it. There's no more. Now, does that matter if it was a kinship thing over a foster home thing, or is that,
In California, it doesn't matter.
it doesn't matter?
Mhm.
Why is, so the kinship, let's talk about that for a second. So they have what they call the kinship, right? And that's where one of your family members would take the child, right? Like, that's pretty much what that is.
Generally, yes. Generally, yes.
So
But
in the state, oh, sorry.
sometimes family members, can be your worst enemy. They
Hmm.
may not want you to be involved at all,
Right.
right? So sometimes they're
So
worse than the foster parent.
right. Well, what I'm getting at here is, I know in Maine they're like kind of doing away with the kinship. They're not doing kinship. They're forcing anybody that's doing kinship to end up licensing themselves as a foster home. So, do you know why or what would be the reasonings for that?
I don't. It might have something to do with funding, federal government funding. I don't know. Usually, nothing is done without a reason, and
Right.
typically the reasons are money.
Right. I mean, that would be the only thing that makes sense for that too. I mean, but I know that here that's what they're doing. Anybody that's doing anything, everybody has to get a foster license,
Mhm.
to go ahead and take these kids into their house, or even if it's a temporary situation, they're having them go into these foster home type scenarios.
Mhm.
Do get a licensed home. Is that what they're doing in California? I mean,
Not that I know of. But they don't. CPS doesn't discuss with me their strategies, right?
right. Yeah, understood. I don't know. It's just awful funny that, everybody here, no matter who I've talked to, has, their kid, where their kid has gone, has where it went from, maybe it was grandma or it was, their brother or whoever. Every one of them had to get to continue taking that child, had to get their home license as a foster facility.
Mhm.
So I didn't know if that seems to be like the norm or if that's specific to here. And then I know we talked about the TPR that way. Is a stay given when you are in the appeals process, or do you have to file for a stay of like a TPR, for instance? I know in some senses, if you appeal things, that it's an automatic stay, but how about in a TPR?
It's not in California. It's not automatic.
It's not an automatic thing.
No.
Okay. That's those were just some of the questions that had popped into my head that I was thinking about.
Okay. Ms. G, did you have any questions?
Oh, yes.
How's your lip reading, dear?
It looks like she said she wanted to buy me Christmas presents.
Oh, that's what I thought. I thought she said Darren Guai is my best and most favorite friend.
Yes, I thought that was exactly. That must have been after the Christmas present part.
Okay. My question is, after somebody loses an appeal, how long do they have to file for another one? Because you did say they can appeal the appeal. So how many times can they appeal the appeal?
Okay. So they're in trial court. They get their rights terminated. They appeal. They appeal in California to the California Court of Appeals.
Okay.
If they lose that, they can appeal to the California Supreme Court. All right. And I believe the time period is about 30 days. I'd have to look up the exact time period from when I think what they call the remitter is issued. So sometimes, a decision is published by the Court of Appeals, but the remitter doesn't issue right away because the court allows you to do some certain things after. Whose dog is that? After the hearing or after the appeal, and then you have so many days after the remitter to file a new writ or appeal to the California Supreme Court.
So you have to find
And
the
then,
Okay.
and then, if you lose there, you theoretically can file a writ to the United States Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court of the United States has ruled on CPS cases. Not a lot, but they have done it. So when people say, oh, the Supreme Court won't, you can't go to the Supreme Court of the United States, that's not true. What they mean to say is it's not a strong possibility that you'll go there and win, but you can file in the United States Supreme Court.
So you said to file a writ to reappeal? Is that what I'm understanding? Because you're going.
Okay, it depends on which party you are. Like, are you the winning party or the losing party? So let me give you an example. Let's
How
say
can the winning party be appealing? I mean,
okay, I'm going to explain it to you. Okay, let's say you're in the trial court and you lose.
okay.
You appeal to the Court of Appeals and you win. Now, the social worker can appeal to the California Supreme Court. Now, let me give you another example. You're in the trial court and you lose. You file an appeal with the California Court of Appeals and you lose.
Right.
Then you have to file a writ with the California Supreme Court. There are a lot of technical rules and all of that stuff. Suffice it to say that if you lose one appeal, you can take it up again if you do it on a timely basis. A lot of people don't know the timelines.
So a social worker can also be involved in the appeals?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the social worker can object to a parent winning an appeal?
Yeah, and their attorneys always file briefs objecting to the parent trying to win.
So, okay. So, if a parent wins the appeal and say the social worker's attorney did not object or, um, object to the appeal, can that parent get the child back? Is there hope if they win the appeal? I know you said that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to get the child back, but is there hope? Is there something they can do to to get the child back?
Yes.
What can they do if they win the appeal to get the child back?
Well, it depends on how they win and what the court says. You know, there may be an infinite number of ways that you can win an appeal. Not all of them include you getting the child back immediately. It's just on a case by case basis. It's not like stop on red, go on green. There's many more complexities and alternative things that can happen.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
No, it doesn't make sense. But
So let me tell you something.
mhm.
There's a very famous legal publisher called the California Continuing Education of the Bar, CEB. Okay. They have a book. Last time I looked, it was that thick.
What's the book called again?
California Civil Appellate Practice. But now, I'm just reminded that book that's that thick is now 2 volumes about that thick. Okay. And it's full of all rules and procedures on appeals and writs. So when you ask me a question about an appeal or a writ, I'm trying to summarize for you what's in 2 volumes about that thick.
Hmm.
Okay. It's much more complicated than I can just tell you. And it also depends strongly on the facts of the case. So if you just ask me a question, do I stop on red and go on green? The answer is yes. But you can't ask me that question regarding a writ or appeal. It's a much more complex question. So I mean, if I wanted to be technical about it, you're not even asking me the right question. You're just asking me a very general question, and I'm giving you a general answer, which you don't, it's kind of complicated to be as well. And I'm not sure if you're, gaining that full understanding. It's much more complicated than you might imagine.
So I guess like I stated my question earlier, I find it extremely hard to win an appeal for a parent. That means they actually
It
had
is hard to win it.
evidence. No, no, no. When a parent wins an appeal, that's a big deal because a lot of parents don't win an appeal. When they win the appeal, to me, that's literally solid evidence that the parent didn't do anything wrong and that the social workers, because when you but wait, when you go through the appeal is like 4 different process, right? Where you file for the appeal, then you have to do this, you have to do this, and then you meet with the judges, right? The argument, right? So if they win the appeal, isn't that means the parent is innocent?
No.
Well, how can you win an appeal when you're not innocent? I don't understand. Okay, maybe I'm sorry, but
Well,
that's the only way I can
can,
ask. I don't understand how to.
No, I get it. That's no problem with that question. And I was sitting here thinking maybe I should do a show on appeals and a show
Yes,
on writs
be-
please.
because,
Mhm.
and I'm not trying to put you down or anything, but you don't understand all the issues. So
Correct.
you can't even ask me the question.
I,
So here you go. Here you go. Let me give you an example of a parent that won an appeal, but it didn't really mean anything. We have a client who won an appeal on the ICWA issue. She appealed the termination of her rights, saying that the social workers didn't notify the tribes the right way. And the Court of Appeals agreed with her, reversed and sent it back. Now, in the old days, when they did that, they'd make the trial court, start all over. But what they're doing now is they send it back and tell the trial court, oh, go ahead and fix ICWA, comply with it, and then you can terminate her rights anyway. So we have a current client where that happened. She won the appeal, but it was all for naught. We delayed and delayed, and it didn't work. Because in the end, she just got her appeal, just got her rights terminated again. And we think they still did it the wrong way, so we're going to appeal again,
Well,
and we're also going to file another 388. Does that make sense? So there's an appeal somebody won, and they didn't get their kid back.
Okay, that's ICWA though, right?
Yeah,
But
but
there's different types of appeals, right?
well,
Well,
there's
someone-
there's
someone-
one type of appeal.
I mean, there's one
There's
type
one-
of appeal, but
There's
but-
three or four different types of writs,
right,
but the issues on appeals can be all different.
right. The issues are different.
Right.
Correct.
You can appeal on A, B, and C, or X, Y, and Z, or STR, or just many different issues.
Right. The issues are different, right? So if the issue pertains to a social worker and a judge that literally lied just to steal the child, right? And adopt the child. Now, if they win that appeal, we're not talking about ICWA, we're not talking about, we're talking about an innocent child literally kidnapped from their family. And they win that appeal because the social worker lied. Now, isn't that grounds to get the adoption reversed?
It may be.
Okay. When that happens, right? Then what does the attorney need to do?
Okay.
You said it may be, so there's hope.
Oh yeah, there's always hope.
Mm-hmm.
The problem comes the probabilities of success. Is it a 5% probability, or is it a 95% probability, or is it a 50% probability? And I would need to know what the issue was to tell you what they should do, because they might be doing 100 different things. And I can't tell you without knowing the facts and what the court ruled on in the appeal to give you that answer. It's not just stop on red, go on green. It's much more complicated than that. I hope that makes sense.
It does make sense. There is a PNC that called me today, and she won her appeal
Mhm.
in New York,
Mhm.
and the judges, her attorney proved to the judges that it was done maliciously, like removed the child maliciously from her for no reason, and that the judge literally sided with the social workers, even though there was evidence, and the attorney did not submit the evidence into court when she had the court-appointed attorney, that is. And she hired an appellate attorney, and he did a good job. She won the appeal, and the judges ordered for the children to be returned home. Now, CPS is in the way, saying it's detrimental for the children to be returned home.
Oh,
So wouldn't the appellate court be higher than those depleted souls, CPS
Yes, of course.
and state
Of
judges?
course. Yeah. I mean, something like that is not unheard of. CPS sometimes believe that they run the show and not the judges. But I can tell you, if the Court of Appeals ordered that the kids be returned, or if the trial judge ordered that the kids be returned and they don't return them, that's the time that you go knock on the federal court door and sue them for civil rights violations. CPS is not above the law.
Oh, so the parent has the right to sue if CPS does not comply with the appellate court's decision.
Right.
So
They could-
the appellate
the-
courts
the-
are higher than them and the CPS judges, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
That's a great answer.
what is the process to
but
get
if
to the
they
federal
do-
court?
But if they sue them, are they still going to stand in the way? But see, what I'm saying is, how are they going to insure their kids back?
By
Suing
using
them
every
is
legal.
it's going to take a long time. It's a process. It's not going to just be a one-day sue, right?
No. Because if you sue the social worker in federal district court,
Mhm.
You can also ask for a temporary restraining order or temporary injunction where the court within a week of filing could order, or 2 weeks of filing, could order the social worker to return the kids immediately. A federal judge has a lot of power, and they could, they can come down hard on a CPS social worker in a county. Because remember, federal judges, they have the U.S. Marshals and the entire federal government behind them. So it's unlikely that a social worker will disobey a federal judge. I've heard of social workers disobeying state judges.
So that means they have no respect for the state judges. I mean, they have no respect
Probably.
for the appellate court judges as well, apparently.
Well, I don't. If the CPS reverse, I mean, if the appellate court reversed and the trial judge ordered to give the children back, and CPS doesn't do it, um, that attorney, whoever represents the parent, should
Mhm.
be running back into court and telling the judge what they're not doing. The state judge, could actually get the sheriffs and go get the kids and give them back to the parent. And then the sheriffs can't. I mean, the sheriffs have guns, right?
Yeah, and what
CPS.
what are they gonna do? Shoot the social workers?
Well, that's how they enforce everything. If a sheriff came to your house right now and said, "I'm taking you to jail," and he had a gun, you'd probably have to go with him.
Just let them shoot me.
Okay. I'm su Maybe they'll be happy to. I don't know.
I'm sure you'll be
What
happy.
is what is the process to go to federal court?
Just file a lawsuit. I mean, I say that easily. That's like
Right.
stop on
But
wrong green,
but
but it's
as the
a lot
parent,
more complex.
right, as the
Filing a
parent
federal
that's
lawsuit
been
is a lot more
TPR'd
complex.
though, as a parent that's TPR'd, could you go to the federal courts and ask for the TPR to be overturned through the federal courts, or is that strictly for lawsuits?
You can, but you probably won't win for many other reasons. What Miss G's question was is that of a person that got one on appeal, the trial court ordered that the kids be returned, right? And
Mhm,
the social workers aren't doing it.
Mhm.
mhm,
In my mind, and I
mhm.
don't know all the facts, but in my mind, CPS, if they're doing that, they're violating some people's civil rights,
Absolutely.
the children's rights, the parents' rights. Okay. And it's up to their attorney to go back to court to get the sheriffs to go out and get the kids, or go to federal court to get the U.S. Marshals to go out and get the kids.
So what if CPS during the regular time of like going through the motions and everything of the investigation, what if CPS doesn't follow the judge's orders um, during that time? Like, let's say if you're supposed to visit your child once a week and the CPS all of a sudden says, nope, we're stopping your visits, even though the judge has ordered that your visits, reunification, all of these things. So what's to be done about that?
Well, it's different. Okay, it's different depending on what the court order says. See, a lot of times orders are made, and people don't realize this. In the minute order, it says that the social worker um, has the discretion to stop visits, even though the judge ordered them. And if they do stop them, they're supposed to go to court, have a hearing on why they stopped. And at that time, you as a parent can argue or present your evidence as to why the visits shouldn't stop.
Right.
So it's a little, all of these questions are good questions, but the questions are more complex than you might imagine.
Right.
There's a whole lot of things that you may not even know about or have considered. I once was about to file a contempt action against a social worker, and it was all written and everything, and I happened to be reading the minute order, and the minute order said the social worker has discretion to stop the visitation if detrimental, and that's what they did. But they had to go to court. They hadn't gone to court yet, but we went to court
Right.
and argued it out in front of the judge. Go ahead, Miss G.
When the social worker wants this recommendation is to stop reunification services, you said they have to go to court for that, right? Now,
No, 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 no.
I thought,
If the social worker wants to recommend, usually at the 12 or 18-month hearing, to terminate your reunification services, that's at a 6-month review hearing.
mhm,
6, 12, the 12-month review or the 18-month review hearing. So
mhm.
you as the parent have a right to have a trial to show the judge that your reunification services should not be terminated.
Now, when the judge asks in the trial, or they ask the social workers what was the reason for their decision, right?
It's in their report.
What? But I know they're in the report, but the report are dishonest. We already know that. Okay, they lie. So, example, if the social worker addressed the mother during the visitation and said things about the father during the visit and about the case in front of her kids, and this is a true story today, actually. And the mother turned around and said, "Ma'am, I don't want to speak with you right now about this during my visit," right? But she was very polite. The social worker said, "Well, we'll see about that." Then later, the mother found out that the social worker is recommending a termination of reunification services, but she didn't tell the judge why. She just wrote in the report that the mother didn't have enough food and juice for the child. That was the reason. Now, if that's the reason and the judge actually sees that as a valid reason, isn't that insane though? I mean, think about it. Ha- Just think about it. They have cameras. The attorney didn't even subpoena the cameras or look at the footage, correct? Can the judge just take the recommendation and just run with it without asking the right questions?
Yes.
I see.
The burden is on the parent to set the case for hearing, contested
Mhm.
hearing, and to produce evidence and to cross-examine the social worker to show there's no reason not to, or a reason to terminate her family reunification services. Now, if the parent didn't do that, or if the attorney didn't do that, that's something, a whole different issue. You might have like ineffective assistance of counsel.
Okay. That's crazy because we all know that the court appointed the court appointed attorneys um, don't listen to the parents, unfortunately,
No,
and
they do not.
do not um, show any evidence or cross examination. They say they subpoenaed, this and that, this person, but
Yeah,
then
they couldn't
the
show up for
parents
court, right?
and right, and then the parents will say they will go to the people and say, "Hey, did you get a subpoena?" Because, like the school, for example, no, ma'am, we didn't get a subpoena. So it
Mhm,
happens all the time. They say it, but they don't implement it.
mhm.
So how does the parent get proof that it wasn't implemented, and can they also use that in the appeal argument?
Yes, they can. They can. It's called ineffective assistance of counsel.
Thank you. So I hope you're hearing this. You are watching today. I see you. I hope you heard Mr. Davis. So yes, you can use that in your appeal. It's going to work perfect. And those people can actually write a statement in your appeal brief.
No,
Mm.
you have to bring in evidence. And that's an interesting question. You might want to do it by motion, and maybe you can get their declaration in the motion as part of the record that, hey, attorney so and so never sent me a subpoena.
Okay. She's thinking about hiring you for the appeal. So she's watching tonight. So anyways, yeah, she needs to appeal this. I just wanted her to hear it from you. What can be done. So that's good. That's good to know. And also, just to um, go over what I said about that lady that won the appeal, real quick. They went to the school, took her child when their intent was to take another child, but took her child by accident. They took her child by accident because the children had names. Their first name is the same, but their last name was similar but different spelling. So they took her child by accident. But because the mother raised hell,
What
they retaliated against her. Get it? I'm just
what
letting people
state
know.
What state was this?
California.
What county?
She said near Oxnard, Oxnard area.
Okay. Okay. So, you should have her give us a call. I'd love to speak to her.
She's also watching tonight.
Okay.
They're both watching tonight. I spoke to them like 2 hours ago. Yeah. So
Hold on, Mr. Darren, you had a question or a statement you were going to make?
Well, my brain is kind of left that one that was there.
Okay.
But what I was going to ask you about was along the lines of, so the appeals process, let's say you're out of luck, your appeals process is over. Now, there are things, right, that you can still do, like, I don't know, in Maine, it's the 60B, right? That's challenging. I know it's only within a year's time after the decision, but it has to be like for new evidence, or you could challenge ineffective it's a motion to dismiss, right? That I think you call it the 388, right? Is that what it is in California? Is that what you refer to?
I mean, we have something called a 388. I don't know if it's the same as your main 60B.
So the 60B is like a motion to file to dismiss or to change the for the judge to it's not a retrial, it's a chance to
Reconsider?
reconsider. Yes, that's the word. But then it says that there's a list of things that, you can do for reconsideration. Now that goes back to the district court, correct? Where you originally were heard, or how do those things work?
Well, we call it the Superior Court in California. Yeah, you'd file back into your what I call the trial court.
Okay.
Whatever they call the trial court in Maine.
Right. And then and then it's up to them, obviously, to decide if the motion would go through anyway, correct?
Correct. And I wanted to mention this to you and to Ms. G. Just because you file something doesn't mean that you're automatically going to win. You got to have the best chance of winning. You got to make sure you know what you're doing. I spoke to someone today, and I told them, they asked me, what do I have to do? And I told them, you have to do this, this, and this. And she said, okay, that's what I'm going to do. And I said, do you have any legal experience? No, but I'm going to try to do it myself. And that's a very dangerous strategy, right? Because you got one shot at this. If you don't know the procedural and evidentiary rules, right, or even the law, but everybody thinks they know the law, you're going to shoot your shot and it's going to be ineffective. And then you're going to say everybody's corrupt. But you didn't do it the right way. You didn't make the right legal arguments. You didn't make the right factual arguments. You didn't comply with the legal timelines, right? Or the procedural timelines. So,
right, the timelines are pretty big, correct? Like well,
it's definitely a big issue. Definitely a big issue.
So if let's say, okay, so what do you do if in this case, if your appeal, you lose your appeal, right? And then your court-appointed attorney tells you that they're not going to argue anymore on your behalf because they don't see any arguments. Because now I guess the next level of appeal, let's say for instance, my case is they're not even can argue the case now. They only can argue the law in the appeal. Does that seem like it's right? Like they're only there to argue whether the law was done in the right ways, my attorney said, or something along that line?
That's half right and half wrong. It's a little bit more complex than that. I keep saying that. But, I mean, that's one explanation. But you can argue factual matters. But they have to be factual matters that were brought up during the trial court.
Right.
You can't bring up a whole new set of facts that wasn't in the trial court and say, hey, I want you to consider this in my appeal.
Right.
There's other things you have to do to make that happen.
Okay.
Okay, Ms. G, another question?
yeah, I'm reading it right now. What if this person said, what if I want to sue an individual social worker, the investigative social worker from the beginning of the case? Is that something that is possible to do in California? Just that one social worker?
Yes, you can do that. May not be the best strategy, but yeah, you can do it.
Has there been cases, successful cases in the past that you have worked on that um, that actually did occur?
No. And it's not because I only sued one social worker. You see, when you sue for civil rights violations, you're looking for the biggest pot of gold out there. And it's not just one social worker, it's the county in California, it's the state in, states like Nevada or Oregon. So you want the person with the biggest pockets, and that's not going to be the social worker.
Okay. She said one of your attorneys that was on the show was Miss G. Mentioned that they cannot retaliate against you just because you argued with the social worker. That's not a reason to steal your child from you.
I think that was Mike from New York said that. It's true, but do they do that? Yeah, all the time.
Yeah, but that can that be proven in court? What I'm saying.
Yeah, it can. But here's something. And I told you this many months and months ago.
Mhm.
When I used to be an accountant, a CPA, here's a CPA joke. What's 2 plus 2, Miss G?
4.
Mm-mm. It's whatever you pay for it to be.
That doesn't make any sense, but that's okay.
No, think about it tonight.
You give me a lot to think about tonight, Mr. Davis.
And that's the same thing for social workers.
2
You,
plus 2 is 4. There is nothing you can do to make it any bigger than that.
and that is one of the weaknesses of your analysis of these cases. 2 plus
Okay,
2 is not 2 plus
that's
2
so
is not
mean
4.
you said that, but okay.
2 plus 2 is not 4.
2 plus 2?
Yeah.
2 plus 2 is 4.
No, it's not. It's whatever you want it to be.
Oh my God, oh my God, this country is ran by men. That's the problem. Oh my God. That's
Until
the
you realize that,
wow.
you will never be able to deal with cases like CPS cases.
Mhm.
Okay? Because you actually believe governmental workers are going to be fair and honest and treat you with respect and dignity and not
It's not
violate
about
your civil
respect.
rights.
I already expect disrespect. I expect that. It's just what they do best. I get that. Okay, I'm talking now. Now, right now. My question is, well, first of all, explain what the 2 plus 2, and then you expect this, and what do you mean by that? Whatever number you want it to be, what do you mean by that? So 2 plus I
Kinsley's
two
mommy,
They
plus
don't
2
play by the
is 4.
rules.
So I
Kinsley's mommy gets it. I get what you mean.
okay,
That's what
well,
she said.
I'm happy for her, but
It's like they're not supposed to take your kids for yelling out at them, but they do it anyway. So it doesn't matter what 2 plus 2 is. It's whatever it has to be. It's
oh,
whatever they need to make it work.
You
Is
know,
what it is. What it is.
one time, Miss G, we had a guest on. We got into this discussion about a conflict of interest.
mhm.
And you and the guest explained to me why something was a conflict of interest. And in common everyday terms, I agreed with you. But in the law, it wasn't a conflict of interest. A conflict of interest is whatever they say it is, not what you think it is.
Right, but that's
And
way too
that's why 2 plus 2 is not what you think it is.
gotcha. So
Mhm.
what reality is not their reality. What
Right.
facts are is not their facts.
Mhm.
Right. And I say this all the time. Courtrooms
Wow.
are a false reality by definition because they have rules of evidence about what the judge should or could consider.
Mhm.
Rules of evidence keep out important evidence all the time. But it's
But
just
isn't that deliberately done though? And it doesn't make sense though. I understand what you're saying. I get it now. But I am crying out inside, like my heart aches for women and men who are dying to get their kids back. I cannot process how an attorney that is there to help them refuses to do what is right to get these kids home. That's what I don't understand. They don't do anything for the parent. Like literally, they don't help them.
No, they make sure that the TPR goes through nice and easily.
Darren, TPRs are big money for the state and counties. Big money.
Oh, I know. I mean, they did mine, and there's another thing. When reunification is still the main goal through the judicial reviews, through everything, even to the day they threw out their TPR, how is it that they can still TPR you, even though they say reunification is still the goal?
Oh yeah, they say that all the time, and then
That was in our case. That was it. Reunification was the
every
goal,
case.
but they said nope. We knew they never they never stopped reunification services. They never did any of that.
But that's
They just
every
went and they went for it.
You're asking me how?
No, well, I'm just saying in general, if they're saying that reunification is the goal, then how do they still carry out TPRs?
That's like asking me what's 2 + 2.
Well, I know, but if I understand that, right, it doesn't make sense. It's just like when you ask a judge to recuse, the bias isn't on you as the person. The bias is on the law, which means that they say that the judge needs to appear lawly, or someone, the law needs to appear as the law. That doesn't mean it's bias on me. That means that the court needs to appear that it's lawful and that people look at it that way. So, I mean, I get when you.
Have you ever seen something on the news that you thought was unfair?
All the time, right?
Right. It's the same in CPS cases.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I mean, that's just got to suck for you, though. As a man that has studied the law and everything, like you said that one time to me, forget about everything that you know as soon as you come into the CPS world, because it's all different. All the stuff that you've learned in law school.
Well, it's not just like that in the CPS world. It's like that generally in a lot of cases, a lot of different disciplines or areas of law. I think I told you guys this once before. I'm a graduate of the Jerry Spence Trial Lawyers College.
Right.
The first time I went there, okay, to an event, I think it was a weekend event, the instructor told us, forget everything you learned in law school. And, some people couldn't handle it. When I was at the college the first week, I think, maybe 2 or 3 people dropped out.
Oh, wow.
Because they kept thinking 2 + 2 was 4. And they couldn't understand and accept the fact that it's not always 4. Literally, people dropped out.
Wow.
It's just so crazy that something that seems so simple isn't simple at all.
Right. It's not simple at all.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think this country has laws or lawyers? If the law was so simple and straightforward, you don't need lawyers. You just go to court, explain it to the judge.
Mm-hmm.
I've always said, and I heard someone tell me this years ago, if they ever get a machine that can tell if you're lying and it's accurate, you won't need lawyers.
Right.
You probably won't need judges.
Social workers need that machine though. They really need that machine badly. There's a question here for you, and I think it's a very good question.
Okay, go ahead.
Drake said,
Who did?
Where's?
All
I'm
right.
sorry, Leo. I can't say that. Christmas guy. You see it? Did you just? It's right here. It's right here.
Okay.
Okay. He said you mentioned that in the show about remitter Drake M. the social worker must meet 4 criteria before taking
Yeah.
the children. What are they?
Okay, Lloyd, you'd have to give me the link to that video because, believe it or not, I think I've made over 13 or 1400 videos. And unfortunately, I don't have them all memorized. But if you have a case in California, the social worker has to prove by clear and convincing evidence that you are a substantial danger to the child or children, and two, that there's no less restrictive alternatives to placing them in foster care. Those are the two things that they have to prove at the disposition hearing. Now, remember, Lloyd, at every hearing, there's a different law and a different evidentiary burden that has to be proved. I was talking to someone today like they were in module 2 or 3, but yet they were in module 6, and they can't understand why what happened in module 2 and 3 doesn't apply to module 6. And it's almost as if they didn't get a fair shake in module 2 and 3. Nobody heard them out. So now that they got my ear, they think that telling me things in module 2 and 3 is going to allow me to do something for them in module 2 and 3. And it's not. If you're in module 6, we got to focus on module 6. And if you got screwed in module 2 or 3 and you didn't appeal or you lost the appeal, there's not really anything I can do for you about module 2 and 3. I have to pick up your case at module 6 and move forward with it. And that's a concept a lot of people don't understand or don't want to understand because they feel they got screwed. I get it, but I'm telling you, 2 plus 2 doesn't equal 4.
Correct. And can they um, can they add children to the case if they were not part of the referral? I mean,
Yeah.
it does happen. I get that. But
So the answer is yes. You answered your own question.
wow. So
Can
Let's-
they, can they, can they, can they, can they, can they? They can do anything they want. The
Mhm.
question is, are you going to be able to fight it effectively?
right. I'm trying to get to I'm trying to get through to parents that call me and they say to me, Miss G, I'm a good mom. Everything's gonna be fine. I'm following their rules. I mean, I'm following their I'm doing everything they want me to do. That's all I get. I'm doing everything they want me to do. Everything's gonna be fine. But then I know in my heart it's not fine. So I'm trying to educate them. I'm trying to make a video like here where I can just share it with them. So I can maybe get all the questions answered. Michael even said,
Well, you know
Attorney
what?
Michael said that he recommends from the beginning of the case, from day one. I mean, before it even gets to a case, right?
Right. Well, here's the best thing you could do for parents.
I,
You could write a book or a video on what questions they should be asking, not questions they want to ask.
okay.
Because many people call me and 60, 70% of the conversation is not relevant. And I'm trying to be patient and listen to them, but then when I tell them, hey, that's not an issue, they go ballistic because they've thought for all these months and weeks and years that was the most important question. It's not. The case has moved on. You got to move on and figure out where you are, what you need to do, and go to court and do it. So many people call me and tell me how they got screwed in module 3 and they didn't win their appeal or they didn't appeal. I can't do anything about that when you call me 8 months later. I mean, I wish I could, but I can do this. I can figure out where we are right now, and I can tell you what to do, and I can help you do it. But that's not going to address how you got screwed in module 3, and I'm sorry. There's just nothing I can do. And Darren, I don't know if it was you I was talking to a few weeks ago, but Look, you better focus on getting the child back now where you are, because certain stuff has been written in stone, like the Ten Commandments. And even though it was a mistake, doesn't matter. It's already written in stone. Now, what are you going to do? Well, you need to address where you are, what you need to do, and do it. Let's not cry about how you got screwed in Module 3. I
Right.
know you did.
Absolutely.
You know you did. But there's nothing I can do about it if you miss the appeal.
Right.
That's how cold-blooded the law is. And I
Now,
didn't
is
make
there,
I didn't make the law. I'm trying to tell you what you should do to win, given the nature of how unfair sometimes the law is or how it's applied.
yep.
Silence, silence.
No, it's just a lot to suck in, right? Like it's just a big
Yeah,
pile of suck. You know, when you know
it
that
is.
you haven't done anything wrong, you know that these parents haven't done anything wrong. You know that even the people that are in the courtroom against you know that you haven't done anything. That,
Oh,
no,
yeah.
none of these parents are doing anything even remotely close to what the guidelines of TPR and kids are, but they're getting TPR daily, and people are losing their families, and it's not right. You know,
No, I
I
agree with
think
you. And
I think
I tell you guys all the time, it's not right. All we do is talk about it. When are we going to do something about it?
well, I started a bill. I wrote a bill. I don't know what I'm going to do with this bill, but I'll send it to you. It's about 4 pages, and it's what I call it. Well, I'll let you take a look at it, Mr. Davis, before I tell anybody what it's called. But I figured that's the way, because I thought about like you said to me, local government. But this election, there's no time to get into. The deadlines have passed, I guess, to run for any of the offices that are available this time. So my thought is,
But
so I write a bill, and then let's see if we can do that.
that's great. But here's the thing: how you can get it passed? How
Well,
you
we
going to
got to
go up
get
to
it.
the state legislature in Maine and say, "Here, make this the law"?
Well, you know what? It's better than doing nothing, right?
Well, here's what
but
I
how are you gonna
suggest.
make it that? Okay.
Here's what I suggest. I've been saying this for years. Start organizing the voters in your community, in your county, in your state.
Mhm.
If you get 100,000 or 500,000 or a million, it's like a social influencer.
Mhm.
You know, when you look at social media and you look at these people that have a million followers, they're significant influencers about
Mhm.
different things. You got to become an influencer regarding CPS, and you got to take those votes in
Right.
your county, in your state, and you got to put them together, and you got to let people know, hey, this is who we have to vote in because we
Mhm.
need to make these changes in CPS. You know who did this brilliantly? Who did this, and who's doing it now? And I'm not saying who I support or who I don't support. I'm just telling you about voting. The person who's doing it now is Donald Trump.
Of course.
He's effectively using social media. You know, the first politician that did it, Barack Obama, did it twice. Social media is powerful, and I don't think most people know that or realize that.
I was one of those people that didn't realize that because I wasn't. I'm not a social media person, but
Well, you know what?
I'm beginning to
You know what?
understand.
Let me tell you something. If you're not a social media person, you better get on the bandwagon because it's going
Mm.
to leave you behind.
No,
Because
I
All right.
there's nothing else in social, there's nothing else in our lives.
Yep.
Look, TV, TV is not even big anymore. Everybody's on YouTube.
Mhm.
Everybody's on their phone watching TV or watching a recorded show on Hulu.
Mhm.
no, I understand. I said I wasn't, and
I mean,
then
my CPS Punisher account for TikTok has 20,000 views on all the videos. Oh, every video has over 20,000 views. It's crazy. So,
Right.
like, I can't
But
even imagine.
we're living in a time now we don't realize this, but 10, 15, 20 years from now, we're going to realize how significant social media is. And it's changing all the time. Here's a relatively new social media site. I bet you guys haven't even heard of it. Um, and I can't think of the name, but it's where you call in and where you're listening to someone just giving a presentation and you interact with that people in that group. I forget what it's called. But have you heard of any social media site like that?
Mm-mm.
There's new social media sites coming out all the time.
Mhm.
There are thousands of social media sites out there. How many do you know? 4, 5?
Right.
There's thousands.
It's a full-time job to keep up with social media
I
once you're
know.
involved in it.
I know. And sometimes, people can only be effective in 1
Hmm.
or 2 social media sites. They can't do everything.
Right. It's a lot.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I try
But
to
there's
respond just to those 20,000 views of those people. I mean, there's 700 to 1,000 people a day messaging me, and to just be polite, you have just the same amount here. It's crazy. I can't even imagine what your email must look like.
so, what I'm saying is you guys should be using social media to reach out and pass on the message that we're trying to do, trying to reform social media. And we can only do that with people who vote. Only people who vote. And people don't know who they should be voting for. You're going to have to tell them. Who should be elected to our state legislatures to make laws about CPS, to reform laws about CPS. Who should we be electing as judges? People that are family friendly. That's how you make the change, and that's how I think we should focus on it.
Okay. And also, can you just um, also say it again? I know we said it many times. Um, for parents not to just want to be right
Yeah,
and
yeah.
focus on the case rather than wanting to be right. Because everyone I speak with, it's like they watch your shows, they watch my shows, but they don't get it. They keep saying the same thing. I want
You,
justice.
you know
I want
why? You know
right.
why?
We had a client like that, so
Because
you understand.
Georgette, they don't know. I just have to keep saying it and saying it. There's an old joke I heard. A guy went to church on Sunday, and he listened to the preacher's talk. And preacher talked about a certain topic, and then he went back the second Sunday. Preacher gave the same lecture. He went back a third Sunday. Preacher gave the same lecture. Finally, the guy goes up to the preacher and says, "Why are you saying the same thing every Sunday?" Preacher said, "Well, I'm saying the same thing until you get it."
Yeah.
So, I mean, all you can do, Georgette, is try to keep saying the same thing until people get it. The problem is that people don't know what they're involved with. I talked to a woman today, Georgette, who has a case in San Bernardino. She has a hearing coming up. She doesn't know what type of hearing it is. She doesn't have her 3 children, and she's just completely lost in her case. Her case has been open over, I think, over a year, maybe over 18 months. You ask yourself, how is that possible? These are her 3 kids, the most important case she'll ever do in her life,
Because she
and
doesn't
she
sleep.
and she doesn't know anything.
Because she doesn't sleep. She's not rested. All she
Okay,
does is think about her case day and night. When you don't sleep, you can't function.
right, but who's gonna get it? Who's gonna get it to her? Who's gonna make her understand?
Exactly. And that's why I tell them,
Who?
I know.
Who?
Only her.
I don't
Only
know.
her.
That's why you have to keep saying it. Here's what Georgette wanted me to say. When you have a CPS case, please do not focus on being right.
Yeah.
Don't focus on being right. You focus on winning. Focus on winning and getting your children back.
And winning
Then,
is not about being right.
then,
Mm.
if you want to be right after you got the kids back, then you talk to an attorney about suing the social workers so you can be right and get paid.
There you go.
But
That's it.
don't think
All right.
about that now.
Yeah.
A lot of people call me up with a CPS case, and they're not even thinking about the CPS case. They're thinking about winning a civil rights lawsuit. And although it's important, it's not the most important thing. Most important thing, getting the kid back.
But they think winning the lawsuit will get them their kids back.
Okay, but that's not necessarily true.
Correct. And
It could
also,
be true, but in a lot of cases, it's not.
okay.
It could
And
be
now,
true.
okay. Now, one last question for me. How long can they drag out a case without you having a court appearance? That's one of the questions from Kinsley's mommy.
Okay, and here's the answer that nobody likes. It depends. There is no set answer. If they've taken your kids away from you in California, you're
Mhm.
supposed to have a court hearing between 48 and 72 hours. However, if they've taken the kid away from you and placed the child with another parent, I think they get, several extra days to bring that case. So it just depends.
But they
You asked me a question, but you don't even know all the facts,
correct,
right?
correct. But what I'm saying, my next question is, can they drag the case for 12 months without a court hearing?
No,
No. Can they
impossible.
drag the case for 6 months without a court hearing?
No,
3 months without a court hearing?
no.
Okay. I am
Now,
here
okay,
in,
now
and I haven't
I'm
had
assuming,
one since November. There you go.
okay,
Correct.
but you're assuming, and we don't know this, that they actually filed a case. See, sometimes social workers get involved with your family, take the kid and place the kid someplace else, and they didn't file a case, right?
But
One of the biggest
do
cases
you
I
have
ever
the
did,
kids or
a
not?
civil rights lawsuit where they came and took away two kids and they filed a case, but then they withdrew it. So there never was a court hearing. And they kept the kids away from the mother, I think like 7 months. So in that case, the mother was able to sue for civil rights violations and she won. Right?
Yeah, but can they take a kid without filing a case?
Yes, they do it all the time. The general way to do it is take the kid, then file the case later. But they have to do it in California, 48 to 72 hours.
Wow. Okay, can they file a case and then take the children from court right away?
Yeah,
Like
they do that a lot.
without an investigation?
Well, you see, what's an investigation?
Aren't they supposed to, first step is an investigation?
What's an investigation?
Investigate the matter, the report, the allegation?
No, you're telling me what you think it is. What's 2 plus 2?
Anything I want it to be.
What's an investigation?
Anything I want it to be.
Oh, okay. You got it. You see,
Wow.
you're asking me almost the wrong question. Not what can they do? Here's the question. What can you do about it? These people can do anything they want. You understand that?
Yeah, I do understand that. I'm just trying to get it across to everyone to understand that. I know they can do whatever they want, but people think they can't be above the law. But
But see,
unfortunately, they can be above the law.
but see, a person that's thinking that, and I understand that that's the initial reaction, but a person that's thinking that is already behind the 8 ball because they're analyzing the problem the wrong way. The question is, can they do that? The question really should be, what can I do to beat them? You know, the title of my book and the title of this show. It wasn't a coincidence. The Secret: How to Fight CPS and Win. It's not about what they can't do and what they do. That's the wrong analysis. The right analysis is, how do you fight them and win? Right. Busy is absolutely correct. I like Miss G's question. She's thinking what all of us non-attorneys are thinking. I get it. I get it, busy. I get it. I'm just here to tell you you're thinking the wrong thing. And I want to be nice about that, right?
Right.
Do you,
And
let me ask you something. Let me ask you something. Darren, you're deep in thought. Darren, do you know how to play checkers?
I do.
Do you know how to play chess?
I do.
Do you know how to play Go?
I do not.
Right. Go is the oldest strategy game in the world. It's from ancient China, and it's still played today. It's the most sophisticated strategy game there is. But you don't know how to play it.
No, sir.
And it's like being in CPS court. You don't know how to play that game either.
Nope.
But you're going to try, and you might try without a lawyer.
Right. And it's not saying that that's the right thing to do at all.
Right. So they're playing checker. I mean, you're playing checkers. They're playing Go.
Right.
You don't even know. You don't even know the game they're playing.
No,
You have no
exactly.
idea.
Exactly.
And so many people I talk to, they don't understand that because they never even thought of that. They never thought that there was a game, a legal game that's being played, which they have never heard of and don't know any of the rules to, because it's America and everybody's supposed to be fair. That's far from the truth.
when I know I said that last question, but I asked you three more after that. But when they knock on the parent's door, or the parent comes home, sees a card for them to call the social worker, what is your advice to give them other than don't contact the social worker?
Call Johnny Cochran
He's
or
dead.
Vince Davis.
Thank God he's here. So
that's what you should do.
okay, right. I get that part. But if the social worker comes back that night or that evening, right, and then knocks on the door, and the parent thinks they did nothing wrong, and then they open the door, and then the social worker tells them that if you don't allow me in to check your home, that I will go get the sheriff and we will remove your children. Now, is that, I'm not going to say if that's something they can do. We all know they can do that. But doesn't the social worker would have to come back with a signed warrant? I mean,
Yes.
with a signed court,
Yes.
removal.
Yeah.
But if she or he doesn't have that, now can the sheriff escort them to the home?
Yes, they always do.
Wouldn't the sheriff say, "Hey, let me see a court"? But some sheriffs say it. Some sheriffs say, "Hey, I'm not going to remove the kids if there's no signature by a judge, right? Because you
Right.
are a
Right.
piece of
Because they don't want to be sued.
you
So
mean
they're
nothing."
smart sheriffs. They're smart sheriff's deputies.
Okay,
Some deputies, it's experience like everything else, know
right.
the game. They know the game. And they tell social workers, you ain't got a court order to remove these kids.
Mhm.
Get the F out of here.
Yep, that's
Some
what that guy told her.
some deputies maybe new, don't know the game. They're like, put their hand on their gun and we're coming in to take that kid. So I've heard and seen, both happen. And are police officers and sheriffs trained? Yeah, but generally, social workers, and depending on how much authority they act like they have, they make police officers and sheriffs do the craziest things, and then they end up all being sued. Some of the biggest early civil rights cases in California were cases against law enforcement and social workers. But law enforcement kind of wised up, like, you don't have a court order, get the F out of here. I'm not getting sued.
Wow.
There's a couple of famous cases, federal cases in the Ninth Circuit about police officers getting sued, and the courts in those cases had ruled against the police officers.
They're actually getting sued right now for a CPS case too in San Bernardino. Yeah.
Because the sheriffs or the police, they don't, unfortunately, they miss that training or they don't understand it very well.
Okay, so when a social worker, I'm just going to tell people this. There's a person that I want her to hear this. When a social worker contacts you 30 days ago, 50 days ago, 60 days ago, and doesn't contact you again, doesn't show up again, don't call her 50 times. Please don't
Never,
call her.
my advice is never call a social worker.
Exactly.
Un-
Don't
Unless
do
your
it.
attorney, unless your attorney's on the phone with you.
Exactly. So if you never heard from her again, hopefully she's maybe got hit by a bus. We don't know.
Georgette, we have a client
Hmm.
who hired us. No case had been filed, and the social worker had been calling this lady, threatening her many different ways.
Hmm.
She called me and she said, "Look, what can I do?"
Hmm.
And so I told her, and because of her geographic location, I couldn't be there when the social worker came over. I set the appointment. Social worker wanted to come over today. It was like a Wednesday. I said, "No, you can come out next week. A week from Wednesday."
Oh,
And she
I
said,
know who that is. Yeah.
and the social worker said, "Why?" I said, "Well, I'm not available till then." She said, "Well, you can't be there." I said, "Well, you better, better ask your attorney about that." She asked for county counsel, and county counsel said, "Yeah, Davis is right. We need to dot our I's and cross our T's."
Hmm.
So she came over with her supervisor,
Hmm.
and I'm on the phone, and the mother's telling me, "Well, two people are coming in my home." I said, "Wait a minute." I said, "I gave authority for one person to be there." And the lady says, "Well, I'm our supervisor." I said, I said nicely, I forgot the words I used, but I was very nice. But like, what does that mean to me? You have authority to have one person in the house. You guys pick. So the supervisor went out and stayed in the car, and she got on the phone with the social worker in the house. And I said, "That's okay." So they were asking the client some inappropriate questions, and I kept telling them, "My client's not going to answer that. My client's not going to answer that. My client's not going to answer that." So finally, the lady, wanted to argue with me. And I said, "Look, I really don't intend to argue with you. If you have a problem, go talk to your attorney." And she said, "Well, if I have a problem, I'll go get a warrant to detain these children." I said, "Okay, I'll be waiting for you."
Oh my God.
She never got the warrant. But the reason I'm telling you the story is our client, who's trying to maintain a poker face while the worker's in the house, when the worker left, she was freaked out. She said, she's mad. She's going to do this and do that. I
Yep.
said, look, I said, look, don't worry about it. She's not going to do it. I sued this county many times. Just relax. It's probably been about 2 or 3 weeks now. And, my, our client still has the kid, so.
Thank God. But see, that's exactly the right move. I know who you're talking about because we talked about this before, but that's the right move right there. But don't be afraid. People, when they hire you, they still get scared. What if the social worker retaliates against me because I hired Davis? What does that mean? What? It doesn't make any sense to me. Why are you letting them bully you though? That's what I don't understand. Don't allow them to bully you. If you have an attorney, a good attorney that understands them and understands their tricks, just rest assured, right? You should be restful. You should be happier. You should always give them a poker face, by the way. Am I right? Always a poker face. Don't show your happiness and don't show your sadness. Don't show your emotions. Don't show you're upset. Don't show nothing. Absolutely nothing. Even if they called you an idiot, show them nothing. Am I right?
Hey, yes, you're correct. Hey, Neil, watching on YouTube, give me a like and subscribe to the channel. And if you need to talk to me, look at the screen, Neo. Bottom right-hand corner, 888-888-6582. Give me a call. You'd be surprised, Miss G and Darren, how many people say to me, in a comment or something, like, "How do I get in touch with you?" I don't know if I should put that telephone number in red. Hey, Grace, are you listening? Maybe we should put that telephone number in red because it's up there for people to see. But a lot of people, I guess it just blends in and they don't see it.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can see Miss G's telephone number, 626-631-8901. Call her or text her at that number.
I can
I
leave it right here like this for you
hope
too.
maybe I should put the other number too, Vincent.
I like that. I like that, Miss Darren. What other number?
The 310 number, the
Oh,
older
that's
number.
no. You can put your numbers up there. Okay, look, we're way over time tonight. It seems like these question and answer shows go on long time.
You do a
Before
nice
we,
job picking it up on the fly.
so thank you very much. Before we go off, Ms. G, any last questions?
No, I'm all done with that.
Okay, Mr. Darren, any last questions?
No, sir. I think you did well tonight from me, for sure.
All right. Well, I want to thank you all for watching and listening. We are going to be doing our show tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. So I hope to see everyone tomorrow morning, and we'll do this again.
All
Good
right.
night, all.
Good night.